Deep in the winter-swept boreal forests, an exhausted caribou desperately searches for a tender shoot. After several days without eating, even the humblest branch is a feast. However, suddenly, in the distance, a sinister figure moves among the convalescent vegetation. In the blink of an eye, what looked like a bush turns into a ferocious gray wolf, and a frantic chase begins. But the Canid is not alone, and from the flanks appears a whole pack with clear intentions of making the ungulate their prey. After several kilometers through the treacherous snow, the caribou falters, and the predators do not miss the opportunity. Together, they pounce on their prey, and the slaughter begins. This is wild Alaska, a place where survival is a luxury reserved for the strongest. Here, every species wages an eternal struggle, both against the elements and against the heartless cruelty of the food chain. The musk ox experiences the full ferocity of winter firsthand, with eternal snowstorms lashing the steppe. American beavers are working tirelessly to build their beaver lodge, a shelter that will protect them from the freezing temperatures ahead. Meanwhile, the black bear scrutinizes every corner of the ecosystem in search of food as part of its preparations before its long winter hibernation. In Alaska, nothing is written in stone, and survival is a privilege that each species earns through sheer ferocity. The red fox, a skilled hunter, walks slowly through the coniferous forests, tracking an unsuspecting rodent underground. The faintest chitter or fleeting trail betrays the presence of a defenseless lemming, and the hunt begins. Without thinking, the dog begins to dig, raiding the burrow of its prey. The raid lasts no more than a few seconds, and inevitably ends with the predator with a victim between its teeth. Far from the crime scene unleashed by the red fox, a copious deer carcass is the meeting point between two giant grizzly bears. The enormous bears collide in a violent confrontation for the right to possess what for them is a veritable feast. Each opponent unleashes powerful claw attacks capable of crushing bones, and the battle is fierce, leaving destruction in its wake. Further south, from the heights, a skilled hunter of the skies appears, ready to terrorize its prey on the ground. With its majestic flight, the bald eagle becomes the nightmare of countless wild species. In the blink of an eye, the bird of prey descends from the heights, and with its sharp talons, takes on a new life. While the entire Alaskan ecosystem bows to these imposing predators, being gutted by a voracious carnivore is not the only concern of the wild inhabitants of this remote region of the planet. The Alaskan climate is anything but hospitable. In Alaska, winter is not a season, but rather the transformation of a natural paradise into an icy hell on Earth. The sun retreats until it becomes a myth, and the icy blanket takes over the tundra and the peaks with almost total darkness. With temperatures below -50 degrees Celsius, the endless rivers, once streams of life, turn into obsidian. After a yoke of up to 6 months of winter dictatorship, the spring thaw is only a change of torment, as the soft earth exposes the mud trap. The landscape transforms into a swampy labyrinth that drains the strength of the ungulates and exposes newborn young to the sight of the great hunters who have fasted during the months of twilight, unleashing chaos, where a slaughter occurs in every corner of the ecosystem. Summer, despite being a time of prosperity, still brings its challenges. This violent explosion of light brings with it the relentless plague of insects, where swarms of mosquitoes and horseflies tirelessly extract blood from the thickest skin, forcing animals to seek precarious shelters at the top of the winds, or in the heart of glacial currents to avoid slow bleeding out. Autumn, for its part, is a brief and glorious interlude between hunger and darkness, the moment of truth for all species, a desperate race against time. Here, ungulates must store fat, predators secure their territory, and the salmon must complete their final migration before the frost seals the river under an unbreakable ice roof that won't crack until next spring. Hesitate in this season, and you are certain to die. Although for most Alaskan species the arrival of winter means eternal famine, for the polar bear, the plummeting temperatures are just the beginning of its icy empire, and of unprecedented abundance. Standing over 3 meters and 4 centimeters tall, the polar bear is a formidable beast designed by the tyranny of the cold. This predator dominates northern Alaska, an imposing presence above the vast, shifting ice of the Chukchi Sea. This gigantic carnivore exerts its absolute power over numerous prey, unfortunate creatures condemned to be in the crosshairs of this white killer. With a body that can reach 680 kilograms, this mammal is a behemoth, a living mountain protected by a layer of fat that reaches 12 centimeters in thickness, giving it the perfect shelter for sub-zero days. Its fur, which looks like immaculate snow, is made up of hollow, translucent hairs. This adaptation channels the scarce light and heat to the underlying skin, which, surprisingly, is completely black. These formidable adaptations against extreme cold mean that the bear doesn't even flinch when the cruel Alaskan winter takes over the ecosystem. On the contrary, winter days are a welcome relief for this snow tyrant. Its claws are sharp hooks, essential for ice climbing and snow drilling. The legs are vast and wide, exceeding 30 centimeters in their largest dimension. This anatomy allows it to distribute its weight and move without sinking into the frost. While for other wild Alaskan inhabitants the arrival of the freezing days means fasting, for the whitish bear it is the beginning of abundance. When sea ice spreads across the Arctic, this polar desert becomes the perfect hunting ground for this voracious carnivore, which spells bad news for prey such as the ringed seal and the bearded seal, who will have to deal with the far from enviable task of feeding this insatiable predator. When hunting, the polar bear uses its sense of smell as its main weapon. Its sense of smell allows it to detect the trail of a seal from more than 30 kilometers away, even when it is under a meter of compacted ice. Upon detecting a trail, the bear approaches the place of the exhalation with a slowness that defies hunger. Once at the place where, he hopes, there is a large number of seals, the predator shows no sign of despair and lies motionless waiting before an aglue. The aglue is the vertical breathing point that the seal keeps open in the ice. The wait can last for several days without any rest. After a demonstration of infinite patience, waiting for an opportunity, that precious moment arrives with a seal emerging to the surface to breathe. The violence erupts instantly, with the bear launching its swipe, which descends with a force calculated to ensure that the impact is an immediate death sentence. The blow aims to fracture the skull and neck before the prey can submerge. The bear secures the capture with its powerful tusks and breaks the ice to extract the loot. A single bearded seal, with its high fat content, can provide a feast of 170,000 calories. This ration is enough to sustain the hunter's immense energy demands for more than 10 days. The predator consumes only the skin and the layer of fat, leaving the rest of the meat for opportunistic scavengers. The need for pure fat is a curse for the mammal, and the only way it can cope with low temperatures. While the gigantic males of the species dedicate themselves to showing all their ferocity by subduing large pinnipeds, winter has a different meaning for the female bears. Pregnant females leave the ice in autumn to dig their maternity den. This shelter is an isolated chamber, dug into the deepest snowdrifts, deep enough to be completely isolated from the nefarious outside. The cubs are raised during the winter, while the mother remains in total seclusion. This selfless mother survives entirely on the fat reserves accumulated during the winter hunt. Their tender cubs are born blind, small, and depend exclusively on their mother's milk. This is one of the richest substances in the animal kingdom, containing up to 35% fat. The mother will not leave the safety of the den for up to 4 months, a sacrifice she makes entirely for the survival of her young. The success of the litter depends entirely on the planning and ferocity of the mother, who, in addition to feeding her young and resisting the onslaught of the climate and famine, must protect the cubs from her fellow bears, because you never know when, out of nowhere, a gigantic male eager to copulate will appear with the intention of forcing her into heat, thus destroying her offspring. Several kilometers further south, far from the almost Arctic domains of the polar bear, the survival of sub-zero Alaska shows another of its faces. Condemned to undertake the longest known land migration in North America, the numerous herds of caribou arrive at their wintering grounds in the coastal tundra and boreal forests. With each individual weighing over 250 kilograms and standing about 2 meters tall, the caravan makes the ground tremble as it passes. However, after a journey of more than 600 kilometers from the north, the worst is over, and the flocks disperse in more southerly lands. Of course, we're still in Alaska, and no matter how far south you go, snowy days always end up coming. Despite the pleasant conditions compared to their former northern habitat, the Alaskan winter is unforgiving. These ungulates will have to face all its hostility. To survive the spring days, these deer are perfectly adapted to glacial temperatures. Their thick fur, of unparalleled density, insulates them like armor against the constant snowstorms. Their hooves are wide and concave, equipped with sharp edges, an adaptation that allows them to walk with complete ease on the treacherous surface. Its distinctive antlers are an imposing bony structure, worn as an emblem by both the male and the female. These structures, besides being a status symbol, are used as pickaxes in their desperation to dig through the snow. Their antlers, along with their broad hooves, are the perfect tool for finding fresh lichens under the frozen ground. Although food is less scarce in these more southern regions, with thousands of caribou congregating and snow covering everything in its path, little by little, even the smallest sprout begins to become a real luxury. Thanks to highly developed vision, capable of detecting ultraviolet light, and a sensitive sense of smell, these herbivores can perceive even the smallest trace of something even remotely edible, even under several meters of snow. Lichens, shrubs, herbs, rushes, and fungi, anything goes when survival is at stake. When the most violent snowstorms take over the ecosystem, caribou usually take refuge in places with dense vegetation, such as coniferous forests, seeking a natural shelter. But the flock is not only fighting against the climate. In winter Alaska, while some struggle to survive, others threaten life. Faced with such a feast of prey, predators soon besiege the herd, searching for the weak link in the group. Where there is a large herd of caribou, there is almost always a hungry pack of wolves on the prowl. When a specimen falls behind due to exhaustion or illness, predators quickly lay their ambush. Of course, no matter how harsh the habitat conditions or how exhausted they are, the ungulates will not be easy prey, and upon identifying the trap, they will begin a relentless battle for their lives. Relying on the strength of the group, they use the stampede as a collective defense, creating chaos in which all strategy is discarded. Since the tactic of canids is to separate one of the ungulates away from the group, the best defense is cohesion. Of course, when faced with such formidable hunters, sometimes one of the deer ends up cornered. And it is here that, without a feasible escape route, they can show their most aggressive side, trying to charge their pursuers. Of course, this is a desperate measure, as caribou will always prefer to flee rather than attack. But it is not only aggressive packs of wolves that threaten the survival of these enormous herbivores. The flock also faces the silent threat of the Canada lynx, a meticulous hunter of shadows. Lurking from the edges of the frozen boreal forest, the feline represents a constant threat to the youngest members of the group because, due to its compact size, it is not a worthy adversary for the adults. While predators do wreak havoc on ungulate herds, the biggest killer of caribou in winter Alaska is by far the extreme cold. Despite their enviable adaptations to low temperatures, the thermometer often drops too low, and freezing snowstorms bury everything in their path. Every year, when spring finally arrives, the thaw reveals the atrocities of the sub-zero days, with hundreds and even thousands of caribou buried in a tomb of ice. But to survive in this untamed land shrouded in ice, you don't need to be a gigantic deer weighing over 250 kilograms. The ferocity of Alaskan nature is presented in forms as delicate and small as the majestic ptarmigan, with a size that barely reaches 38 centimeters, and a weight that does not exceed 600 grams. This tiny bird is the living example of the irreverence to perish on the part of a creature, at first glance, fragile. But what the partridge lacks in size, it makes up for in gallantry. This bird of the peaks has chosen to face the hostility of the Alaskan winter, where temperatures drop to -50 degrees Celsius. While others flee, this one stands firm in the high valleys and open steppes, a constant challenge to the dictatorship of the cold and the wind. The survival of this high-altitude specialist begins with its amazing thermal adaptation, a natural armor perfected over millennia. Its body is wrapped in the densest plumage that can be found on any non-marine bird on the planet. This protective layer is an intricate network of feathers, which act as an insulation system, trapping vital heat. This natural coat extends to completely cover its legs. The toes and soles of the feet are lined, transforming them into a kind of natural snowshoe. This anatomy allows it to walk with disconcerting lightness on soft surfaces, avoiding the expenditure of energy that would result from sinking into unstable frost. The bird's winter plumage is not just a coat, it is a mechanism of absolute invisibility. With the first drop in temperatures and the spread of the white blanket, this Alaskan ghost undergoes a radical molt. Its plumage takes on the tone of the surrounding landscape, an immaculate, perfect white that blends it into the snow until it disappears. Her most extreme strategy against the cold involves using her surroundings as an architectural refuge. During the wildest blizzards, or when the polar night intensifies, instead of fleeing in what would be an act of cowardice, this inhabitant of the heights voluntarily submerges itself under the surface layer of snow. Once hidden, it digs a small, isolated chamber, a personal snow burrow, which, while nowhere near as elaborate as a beaver lodge or a bear den, does the job. Inside this makeshift shelter, the temperature can remain stable, even tens of degrees warmer than the air that blows across the surface. For the Arctic galliform, snow becomes an ally, the perfect insulator against the cold that claims lives outside. With the issue of staying warm under control, the partridge focuses on another of its main concerns. Because, like the cold, famine looms with the same cruelty. Finding food under the thick floor of ice and snow is the daily challenge that defines their existence. This whitish bird does not feed on prey, but has adopted a specialized diet exclusively of vegetation that withstands extreme cold, such as willow branches and dwarf birch shoots. To access what is an enviable meal amidst Alaskan austerity, this skillful survivor relies entirely on the strength of its legs and the sharpness of its beak. Using its sturdy feathered legs, it scrapes and digs through compacted snow, creating small foraging pits. With obsessive precision, he digs until he finds the lichens and shoots that have remained frozen beneath the surface. Each bite is a victory against hunger, as well as a small injection of calories to counteract the constant loss of heat. The sensitive senses of this white creature are also essential for detecting the smallest traces of food. Its sense of smell helps it to identify the presence of plant matter, even when it is buried under several centimeters of snow. The search is a constant and desperate task, because a day without success is equivalent to a dangerous depletion of energy reserves. But the need to feed forces the tiny bird to abandon the safety of its burrow, exposing it to the gaze of relentless hunters. The icy air of Alaska is patrolled by predators that see the partridge as an easy source of sustenance amid scarcity. The gerfalcon, a hunter of the skies, descends with the speed of a projectile over the open tundra. Its long-range vision makes it a constant threat, capable of detecting any movement that breaks the snow pattern. From the ground, the Arctic fox, a specter with white fur and short ears, roams the expanses of ice with an unrelenting hunger. As a countermeasure to the constant threats from these carnivores, the ptarmigan employs an evasion strategy that relies on its absolute camouflage and stony stillness. Upon detecting a shadow in the sky or a trace on the ground, without thinking, he freezes instantly. With its white plumage, it becomes an invisible dot, a mound of snow that does not deserve the predator's attention. This total immobility is their first and most effective line of defense against the keen eyesight of birds of prey. On rare occasions, and if the threat persists, the creature of the peaks takes flight in a short, explosive burst of energy, a shock that serves to confuse the predator and allow it to plunge into a new layer of snow, where it disappears again into the infinite white. The ptarmigan is proof that, in the Alaskan ecosystem, size does not define a living being's ability to prevail. Far from the area where this amazing bird masters the art of survival by becoming invisible among the whiteness, a formidable pack of wolves crosses the steppe. Marching with a firm step, the herd defies the hostile Alaskan living conditions, looking winter straight in the eye. With each specimen being a block of muscle weighing over 75 kilograms and measuring over 1.5 meters from snout to tail tip, these canines are designed for endless miles and zero-degree combat. While the entire ecosystem trembles due to the low temperatures, these wild dogs barely flinch at the extreme cold. Its fur is not just a simple coat, but an entire impenetrable double thermoregulation system. The inner layer is a thermal wool mesh that insulates the body from the cold outside, while the thick, greasy outer layer repels moisture from the snow. This double armor allows the predator to maintain a constant internal temperature, oblivious to the icy hell that surrounds it. The legs of the king of the steppe are specializations forged by necessity. Equipped with interdigital membranes, these act like snowshoes, as well as efficiently distributing their weight over soft surfaces. despite being designed by the creator himself to withstand the harshest glacial living conditions. Sometimes the Alaskan climate becomes more severe than expected, and not even these avid survivors are able to remain ignorant of their surroundings. With a cruel blizzard lashing the steppe, this clan of hunters advances, defying the extreme cold. The snow, driven by a constant wind, hits their faces like frozen sand. The world is a white tunnel, where visibility is reduced to a few meters. 4 days have passed since substantial food crossed the threshold of their jaws, and hunger is a sting in the belly of every member of the pack. The alpha, the absolute leader of the pack, a formidable male, raises his head, and the wind, in a cruel turn, brings a fleeting trail that filters through the ice. It is the sour scent of life, small but present, the Arctic hare. The prey is minuscule, barely a portion, but hunger does not negotiate the scale of the victim. Without hesitation, the pack splits up in silence, abandoning its exhausting march to carry out an elaborate hunting strategy. 2 flanks open up, moving stealthily under the noise of the wind. The hare, unaware of its surroundings and trusting in its white fur, almost as immaculate as that of the ptarmigan, perceives the encirclement when the predator is only 10 meters away. Suddenly, panic erupts in a frantic sprint. The hare becomes a blur of muscle and fur, hopping over the mounds of snow. But for wolves, the hunt is not a sprint, but a test of coordinated endurance. The clan takes turns maintaining pressure, cutting off escape angles and forcing the prey to run in a straight line. The hare, exhausted, makes a fatal mistake, attempting a change of direction on soft ground. Instantly, a young wolf intercepts the maneuver, and the chase ends with a violent collision. With a bite to the back of the neck, they break the hare's cervical vertebrae, and without wasting any time, the hungry dogs devour the body in less than a minute. The warm, juicy meat of the lagomorph is just a brief memory, and the wolves raise their heads in unison, their eyes once again fixed on the white void. The search for food continues. Hours later, as evening falls, the wind brings a dense and heavy aroma. This time it's not a small mammal, but the essence of a mass death. What for them is an exquisite aroma leads them towards a mass of frozen meat, the carcass of an adult moose, partially consumed. Something that was a routine meal in summer, in the middle of the austere Alaskan winter, becomes a real luxury. However, the feast has an owner. Before even one of the dogs can put its mouth on the carcass, a gigantic polar bear rises up over the loot. This enormous beast, which weighs over 650 kilograms, claims its prey with a growl. The clan leader, hardened in battles against these giants, begins the challenge. The clan disperses, surrounding the bear in a tense, swaying circle. The ursid, frustrated, launches a devastating attack. Its claws tear through the snow in the air. The pack's strategy is chaotic distraction. While the bear focuses on the frontal threat, 2 wolves pounce on its flank. Quick, painful bites seek frustration, not a fatal wound. The gigantic mammal spins around in a roar of pain and fury. In that split second of distraction, the rest of the clan pounces on the moose. They peel away the layers of frozen fat and the exposed meat. Confrontation is a sequence of attacks and retreats. The white beast is too powerful to be subdued, and the wolves are too fast to be brought down. After several minutes of bloody warfare, the pack retreats with heavy bellies, securing several kilograms of vital fat for the winter. The bear, exhausted, allows the escape. With their appetite finally satisfied and the weather proving unusually pleasant, the dogs set about guarding their domains. Sometimes, for gray wolves, the greatest adversary does not come in the form of a fleeing caribou or an aggressive polar bear. Sometimes the most relentless threat is their own species. Owning a territory marks the thin line between abundance and starvation, so the pack patrols its borders tirelessly. The scent of a rival alpha male, a foreign smell, seeps into the heart of his domain. In response to this, the pack reacts with primal fury. The trail leads the wolves to a clearing of fir trees at dawn, where a smaller, rival pack is trying to secure a hunting area. Both packs stop at a distance of about 30 meters. Before the start of hostilities, a tense silence precedes the carnage. The howls of defiance rise in the cold air, a war chorus declaring strength. The alpha of the resident pack advances with his back bristling. Every hair is an absolute declaration of intent. With nothing to contain the tension, the fight breaks out in an instant of violence. It's a brutal clash, an explosion of teeth and flesh. The goal is the destruction of the rival hierarchy, not the hunt. The bites are launched without the slightest mercy, directly at the neck, the throat, the flank. A double coat of fur is not a sufficient shield against a jaw that can exert a pressure of 1,000 kilograms per square centimeter. As the fight progresses, the air fills with the sound of scraping bone and grunts of pain. The leader of the invading group is intercepted by the resident alpha of the territory. The duel is fierce, a battle of veterans. The dominant wolf attacks the rival's neck in a fatal bite. The loser's body falls onto the snow, a territorial sacrifice. The victorious pack focuses its attack on the youngest and least experienced wolves of the rival pack. The attack is relentless, seeking wounds that make the message crystal clear and guarantee the permanent expulsion of the intruders. After several minutes of savagery, the invaders flee, leaving a trail of blood in the snow, and surely with no desire to return. Soon, the polar night descends upon the valley, and the pack, though wounded, remains the sovereign of this inhospitable piece of wild Alaska. Thousands of kilometers from the domain of the pack of gray wolves, the horizon transforms, and the hunting ground of the canids gives way to the sea ice, a mobile and treacherous expanse. There, under an unbreakable roof of ice, awaits a mammal that carries on its shoulders the not at all enviable burden of being the favorite prey of the tyrants of the Arctic. It is the bearded seal, the giant of the ice floes, a beast of flesh and fat designed to defy the cold and famine of northern Alaska. With a body that can reach 2.5 meters in length and a weight that approaches 350 kilograms, this pinnape is a robust and massive creature. Often, this marine mammal rests on the vast white expanse, becoming a dark mass against the relentless glare of the winter sun. His name is not random at all, but a tribute to the thick, long mustache that hangs from his face. These light-colored vibrissae are not an aesthetic ornament, but a network of biological sensors of unprecedented sensitivity. Each hair is a radar capable of detecting the most subtle movement. They are the seal's only connection to the hidden world of the deep sea. In contrast to the agony of the entire ecosystem with the arrival of winter, this formidable mammal is unfazed by the drop in temperatures. Their survival depends on an unparalleled adaptation forged by the tyranny of the cold. Beneath its thick skin lies a layer of fat up to 10 centimeters thick, an armor that acts as thermal insulation, a biological shield that makes it immune to sub-zero temperatures on the surface and in the water. Fat is also a massive energy reserve, a storehouse that allows you to get through long periods of scarcity. Unlike gregarious gray wolves and other pinniped species that congregate in massive colonies, the bearded seal does not depend on large herds. The ice giant is a solitary creature, a hermit navigator who patrols his hunting territory in isolation. This elusive lifestyle forces him to be self-sufficient and constantly on alert. His life is governed by an eternal back and forth between vigilance on the surface and dives into the darkness of the sea. The pinniped is a master of apnea, being able, in a single descent, to hold its breath for more than 20 minutes. This allows it to dive to depths of more than 200 meters, reaching its destination on the seabed, a muddy and shadowy landscape. The bearded seal does not chase fast-moving fish or stalk prey in the water column like other marine predators. His strategy is that of a patient and methodical collector. Using its sensitive whiskers to comb the ocean floor, it can detect even the smallest disturbances in the sediment. With the sensitivity of an explorer, the pinniped can sense the presence of a buried clam or a shrimp crawling in the dark. Their diet consists mainly of benthic invertebrates, slow-moving creatures that live on the bottom, a mixture of crabs, marine worms, mollusks, and slow-moving fish. This diet is rich in fats, which contributes to its powerful insulating layer. To extract its loot from the depths, the seal possesses a highly specialized palate and mouth. It does not bite the flesh, but rather sucks its prey in with an absorbent force. This method allows you to extract clams from their shells, or suck small fish from their hiding places. The underwater hunt of this giant is a constant routine, because due to its copious size and its insatiable energy needs, it must consume a massive amount of food. Although it is capable of diving into marathon dives, the need to ascend to the surface is a constant. It needs to breathe, which forces it to regularly pierce the sea ice. For this task, the seal is equipped with powerful front claws, robust and flat structures that function as digging tools. He uses them to scrape and cut seemingly unbreakable ice. With this effort, the pinniped keeps its igloo open, using it to emerge and breathe. Although ascending to this vent is a suffocating necessity, sometimes emerging to the surface is the last thing the mammal will do in its life. Aware of the seal's vulnerable state when it rises to the surface, the all-powerful predator of this remote region is always on the prowl. Using its highly refined sense of smell, the bear perceives the unmistakable scent of a fresh seal at a breathing point. Upon detecting prey of such high caloric value, the mammal quickly arrives for the rendezvous. Of course, faced with this threat, the seal is not willing to surrender to certain death, and to escape the clutches of this white beast, lives in a state of eternal vigilance. The pinniped tries not to doze completely. Their strategy is to always be halfway between the safety of the water and resting on the surface. At the slightest creaking of the ice, at the smallest tremor beneath its body, the seal slips away. His body weight, which exceeds 300 kilograms, helps to make the descent quick. By submerging, the mammal disappears into the murky waters, an advantage that the polar bear cannot match. Back on solid ground, the arid, inhospitable, and hostile face of winter Alaska slowly begins to give way, and with this, a new reality opens up before our eyes. The retreat of the ice unleashes torrents of raging water and turns the tundra into a swampy labyrinth. The return of the sun and constant light unleashes a frenetic plant growth in the valleys. This burst of prosperity triggers hunting and procreation, transforming survival into a race against time. Faced with this new scenario that contrasts from sky to earth with the harshness of winter, the predators enter a prey frenzy. With the Alaskan ecosystem showing a much more generous side, the red fox, a formidable predator, soon becomes intoxicated in countless hunts, killing everything in its path. Despite its compact size of only 90 centimeters long and a weight that does not exceed 14 kilograms, this reddish dog is a true master of hunting in the new reality that springtime Alaska represents. This small beast soon finds itself immersed in an elaborate hunt in its constant struggle against hunger. For this purpose, the step tracker has been endowed with prodigious tools that guarantee it can put its sharp bite on its prey. Its slender, long-limbed silhouette gives it explosive agility, essential for evading dangers and capturing fast targets. The fox does not dominate by force, but by the pinpoint precision of its senses. His true power lies in a hearing so attuned that it transcends the barrier of the earth. It is able to hear the movement of rodents under the snow and mud at a depth of more than 15 centimeters. The fox does not trust what its eyes see, but stops with its ears turned, analyzing with absolute concentration the sound map emanating from the ground. Once it has triangulated the exact point of the prey, the canine propels itself into an unheard-of acrobatic leap. The jump is a vertical maneuver that lifts him to more than 1 meter above the ground. The strike is a precise dive designed to break the plant bark and mud, immobilizing the rodent with the impact. The spring thaw provides a massive population of lemmings and field mice, prey that guarantees that the austerity of sub-zero days is a thing of the past. But the true cunning of the red fox is manifested in its unparalleled dietary flexibility, showing not even the slightest pretension when it comes to eating, a crucial habit for survival in the tundra. Although it appears to be a fierce carnivore, in fact, the red fox is an adaptable omnivore, supplementing its diet with the vast resources that emanate from the land with the new pleasant temperatures. Their spring menu includes the abundant harvest of berries, wild fruits, and tubers that they gather in the valleys. In addition to this, it steals eggs and chicks from the nests of migratory birds that colonize the tundra floor. This ability to vary its diet ensures that the fiery-coated canine never goes hungry, even when prey becomes scarce. With the abundance and waste of spring taking over their habitat, it's the perfect time of year to expand the family. And the red fox has already brought forward its reproductive activities, with a mating season in the depths of winter. After a gestation period that lasts around 53 days, the female gives birth. Birth takes place in the burrow sanctuary, an underground shelter dug in areas of firm ground, such as hillsides or riverbanks. The litter usually ranges from 4 to 8 tender puppies, small blind beings totally dependent on parental care. Home is not just a simple den, but an underground fortress. The burrow is a complex of tunnels with up to a dozen entrances and escape routes, designed to confuse and evade large predators. During the first 4 weeks, the mother remains immovable next to the cubs, with the male assuming the role of hunter, the sole provider for the family. You must keep the female fed and ensure that fresh meat is constantly available to the young. The male faces the danger of the solitary tundra to ensure the survival of his offspring. In Alaska, the fox's success as a predator inevitably attracts competition, creating constant challenges. And its size, far from being an advantage, makes it the perfect target for bullying. With numerous mouths to feed, this wild dog does not hesitate to put into practice some rather questionable habits, engaging in kleptoparasitism, the audacious strategy of stealing food that others have hunted. With its impressive agility, it chases Arctic foxes or coyotes to snatch prey and escape before the imminent retaliation. This tactic, although risky, allows him to save valuable energy, but puts him directly in the sights of larger carnivores, who will not tolerate this despicable behavior. The risk of becoming prey is a threat that never ceases. Gray wolves consider the fox a territorial intruder, eliminating it at the slightest sighting. The grizzly bear, upon crossing its path, will not hesitate to add a small canid to its diet if the opportunity arises. Given this, since the fox cannot confront the brutal force of the giants, its final defense will always be to flee into the complex network of its burrow. Their life in the spring is a dance of extreme vigilance, where the feast of young and rodents must compensate for the risk of being devoured. The only safe direction for the fox is the ground, but the most dangerous threat to its survival can descend from the sky at any moment. Just as the sharp-faced hunter secures a prize, a winged shadow falls across the tundra. The red fox, having spent its last reserves on the jump, freezes. It is the shadow of a predator that fears neither wolves nor bears. With a wingspan exceeding 2.5 meters, the bald eagle is the absolute lord of the skies, the pinnacle of the food chain in the heights. For this majestic bird of prey, the arrival of spring marks the end of winter's scarcity and the beginning of its hunting reign. Its body, covered in dense brown plumage, contrasts with the pure white of its tail and the splendor of its head, which gives it its name. The snowy color of the head is not only an emblem of the species, but a symbol of maturity that is acquired at 5 years of age. The most fearsome feature of this hunter is its natural weaponry, forged by necessity. The beak, bright yellow and curved like a saber, is designed to tear flesh and break small bones. Its claws, however, are its lethal weapon. The talons, bone, and keratin hooks up to 6 centimeters long, which close with a pressure of more than 350 kilograms per square centimeter. The impact is an instant death sentence, capable of piercing the thickest skin and paralyzing the prey's nervous system. This bulk and weaponry are perfectly designed to instill terror in the tundra. The mere presence of the bald eagle over the Alaskan tundra is more than enough to terrify the red fox. The copper-coated canine has striven in the hunt, but his effort is useless before the power of heaven. The raptor descends at a 90-degree angle, with a speed that cuts through the air. It is an intimidation tactic, because luckily for the dog, the objective is not hunting, but theft. Just as the fox tries to secure its prey, the eagle opens its heels. The bird's impact is not intended to provoke confrontation, but rather to instill panic in the canid. The fox, aware that a single mistake means death, makes the most sensible decision and abandons the body, fleeing towards his den. The sharp-faced hunter has lost his valuable loot, but at least he has kept his life. But the fox is not the only wild inhabitant besieged by the tyranny of the eagle. In spring, the thaw brings the migration of the salmon, which is the most important food source for this bird. The silver-scaled fish ascends the rivers, and the eagle, aware of the waste of resources this entails, perches in the tallest trees, a convenient place to witness the spectacle. From his vantage point, he carefully observes the water. Thanks to its distance-defying sharp vision, the bird of prey can detect a fish moving in a stream kilometers above, a tiny target in the vast green tapestry of the tundra. Upon spotting what appears to be prey, it does not falter and dives down upon the fish, a display of ballistic precision. Its claws close on the salmon's body, pulling it from the river with unprecedented force in a lightning-fast act of uncensored violence. Fortunately for salmon, they are not the only ones who must endure the curse of being targeted by the eagle, as it also hunts seabirds that nest on the coastal cliffs, especially the defenseless chicks that cannot fly, as well as Arctic hares, minks, and ground squirrels. Just as for its recent victim, the red fox, the arrival of the new season is the crucial time for the bald eagle to reproduce. Unlike many wild species that choose a life of uncommitted copulation, breeding with all conspecifics they encounter, this raptor is strictly monogamous, bonding with its partner for life. The courtship is an aerial ritual of unparalleled spectacularity, a display of power that, of course, takes place in the realm of the heights. The pair soars to an altitude of up to 3,000 meters, and at the summit, the male and female intertwine their claws in mid-flight. Together, they spin and plummet towards the earth, in a demonstration of mutual trust and physical strength. They only separate at the last instant, demonstrating their perfect coordination before crashing. After this dangerous ritual, the pair concentrates on building or renovating their nest, home for the future eaglets. The bald eagle's nest is not an ephemeral structure. In fact, it is the largest arboreal construction in North America. Built in the canopy of the tallest Alaskan fir or spruce trees, the structure is made of branches, moss, and grasses, and can measure more than 2.5 meters in diameter and reach 4 meters in depth. Due to its massive dimensions, the same nest is used and expanded year after year, eventually weighing more than a ton. With the nest perfectly prepared, the female lays 1 to 3 eggs, beginning a short incubation period of around 35 days, a delicate stage that requires the dedication of both parents. The male is responsible for hunting and bringing food to the nest, while the female protects the eggs from the cold and opportunistic predators. Once the eaglets hatch, a period of 10 to 12 weeks of intensive rearing begins, during which the young must be fed, a demand that triggers the pair's need to hunt. This is the time of greatest activity for the raptor in Alaska. Although the bald eagle does not deal with the problems dictated by the food chain, being located at its apex, its survival in springtime Alaska is still faced with silent challenges. In addition to attacks on their nest by crows, raccoons, and great horned owls to devour their eggs, and young spring winds, although vital for flight, can threaten the stability of older nests, putting the eaglets at risk, and thus the offspring of the masters of the Alaskan skies. Despite the many challenges, aware of the ephemeral nature of this season, the birds take advantage of every hour of daylight to hunt, reproduce, and ensure that their lineage continues to dominate this remote corner of the planet. But it's not just the bald eagle that is aware that spring won't last forever. With this parade of abundance fading away, the lynx knows full well that it must hunt ruthlessly if it does not want to perish when times of scarcity arrive. With a compact size of only about 60 centimeters and a body mass that rarely exceeds 15 kilograms, the lynx is one of those exuberant creatures that appears amidst Alaskan biodiversity. It has a robust silhouette and a slightly hunched back, a shape that maximizes its jumping power. The most distinctive feature of this hunter is its hind legs, which are longer than its front legs and act like springs to propel its body with explosive force. Its feet are a marvel of Arctic nature, crowned by giant pads, covered in dense, stiff fur. This adaptation reduces the pressure of its weight and allows it to glide over residual snow and spring mud without sinking. Its thick fur, which during the winter was a silvery and grayish mantle, turns into more brownish and reddish tones with faint spots. This camouflage grants it perfect invisibility in the dense coniferous forests that dominate its territory. The head, compact and robust, is framed by triangular ears, which end in tufts of black hair, sensitive antennae that capture every rustle and whisper of the forest. The ghostly feline does not hunt by sight, but by hearing, an essential quality for its survival. In contrast to the harsh winter, the arrival of spring is a time of easy hunting for this predator, which focuses its existence on a single prey, the Arctic hare. The hare, which has experienced a population explosion with the new vegetation, provides a reliable food source. But since this small lagomorph is not easy prey, the hunting strategy must be meticulously planned. Not being a marathon runner himself, his tactics rely on stoic patience and stealthy stalking. The feline uses its camouflage to blend into the undergrowth, advancing with absolute silence that mimics the movement of a shadow. Once he is a few meters from his target, he unleashes a burst of concentrated speed, maintaining the chase for no more than 50 meters. The final leap is a lightning bolt of claws that crashes down on the prey, ending the hunt in less than 10 seconds, and almost always emerging from the undergrowth with prey in its teeth. The abundance of spring allows it to diversify its diet, ensuring it gets the most out of this bountiful season. Ground nesting birds, rodents that have emerged from their burrows, And occasionally, small Arctic foxes that venture too close to their territory can easily be incorporated into their varied diet. With memories of winter still fresh, the need to build up reserves is imperative. This feline, in contrast to social predators like wolves, lives its life in absolute isolation, marking its dominance in vast territories that can exceed 100 square kilometers in extent. Spring, although it brings abundance, also intensifies the territorial struggle of these felines to see who will establish a pair and manage to protect the hunting areas. Intolerance towards intruders is at its highest, and the presence of another male is interpreted as a resounding declaration of war. A dominant male patrolling his lands detects the trail of an intruder, a scent that violates the sovereignty of his territory. With intrusion, the encounter is inevitable, because sooner or later the resident male finds the stranger in a quiet, wooded area. Both felines stop, raising the fur on their backs. The black tufts of his ears are pulled back, while a dull, harsh roar breaks the silence of the forest. The combat is a fast-paced battle, but one filled with unprecedented ferocity. Lynxes rise up on their hind legs, exposing their front claws, and hit their face or head. The heels open in rapid arcs, seeking deep tears in the skin. The bites are directed at the neck and legs, trying to immobilize the opponent. The fight is a display of pure aggression, a violent dispute for the right to hunt and dominate. Usually, the more robust feline, almost always the dominant one in the territory with superior strength, manages to immobilize its rival. And with a final growl, the usurper is forced to flee, marking the end of the confrontation. The victorious lynx reaffirms its sovereignty, leaving a clear warning that this hunting ground will not be shared. Spring brings with it other challenges besides internal competition. The phantom cat must maintain constant vigilance against the giants of Alaska. The wolverine, a carnivore of legendary aggression, can steal its prey if the lynx does not secure it immediately. The pack of gray wolves represents a deadly threat from which the lynx can only escape by climbing to the safety of a treetop, its final refuge. The survival of the ambush master in the spring is a mixture of athletic prowess and extreme caution. A constant cycle of hunting the hare and defending his right to exist on the land he has claimed. Far from the boreal forest guarded by the solitary lynx, to the south of this vast wild empire, a new scenario appears where the battle for survival in Alaska takes on other nuances. As sea ice retreats, life moves to the coastal cliffs, where the baton of the wild routine passes from aggressive felines and ferocious canines to small surfers. Standing at just over 30 centimeters tall and rarely weighing more than half a kilogram, the Atlantic puffin is one of those peculiar life forms in the Alaskan ecosystem. This tiny seabird, dressed in a natural tuxedo, is the antithesis of the bald eagle. Its plumage, black on the back and immaculate white on the chest, gives it perfect camouflage in the waters. The most striking feature of this sea clownfish is its beak. During the winter, it takes on a dull and timid color. But in spring, like its habitat, it is covered in vivid tones adorned with stripes of yellow, blue, and bright red. The beak, besides being a courtship ornament, is a very useful and efficient fishing tool. Unlike terrestrial birds, their wings are short and robust, perfectly adapted for underwater propulsion. The puffin doesn't swim, it flies underwater. Its wings beat the water with a power of up to 100 flaps per minute, allowing it to reach dizzying speeds. With this propulsion, it can dive to depths of more than 60 meters, although it rarely exceeds 30. Just like on land, Alaskan spring unleashes an abundance of marine life. So in this season, the bird can eat until it's stuffed. The small seabird feeds mainly on sand eels and herrings, tiny fish that congregate in large schools. To capture these fresh seafood snacks, the puffin uses the small spines covering its beak to hold onto its prey. When diving for a catch, it can catch and carry up to 12 fish at once, perfectly aligned along its beak, as it continues to harvest its feast. This ability is vital, since spring is the nesting season. The puffin is an intensely social creature on land, gathering in massive colonies that can number in the thousands of individuals on the rocky cliffs of Alaska. Nesting occurs on top of cliffs, where they dig tunnels in the ground. These burrows, which can be up to 1 meter deep, are their sanctuary. Like the bald eagle, the puffin pair is monogamous and uses the same burrow year after year for egg laying. The female lays a single egg, the hope for the future of her species. As responsible parents, both parents take turns incubating the egg and then feeding the tender chick. Each fishing trip for the puffin is a race against time, as it must deliver its cargo of fresh fish to its nest as quickly as possible. But this means facing the siege. Knowing the unparalleled fishing skills of the puffin, the air thief, the seagull, she constantly patrols the cliffs in search of a fresh meal with zero effort. The seagull attacks the puffin in mid-flight, forcing it to release its precious cargo, while the small seabird, in an attempt to protect what is rightfully its own, performs evasive maneuvers and frantic zigzags to escape the aerial robbery. Although on numerous occasions the plunderers manage to deprive the bird of sustenance for its offspring, after several fishing trips, the puffin finally manages to arrive at the nest with a fresh herring. The chick, fed exclusively on fish, gains weight rapidly, an accelerated growth rate that ensures the little fledgling will be ready when it's time to take flight. The end of spring is approaching, and with it, the return to the solitude of the vast ocean. The migration of the puffin signals the inexorable march of time, but on land, winter is now a distant memory. The realm of cliffs gives way to the inland valleys of the wildest Alaska. With the sun dominating the sky and the thaw now complete, the ecosystem has reached its peak of feeding frenzy. It is in this stage of overflowing abundance that the dominance of the most fearsome predator, the burly grizzly bear, is consolidated. This gigantic brown mass has been awake for weeks now, hunting relentlessly and devouring entire worlds. The winter fast has been mitigated, and the bear has managed to regain the lost muscle mass, becoming once again a copious beast. Standing over 2.5 meters tall and weighing more than 500 kilograms, the grizzly is a living mountain, a block of pure muscle and brute strength. Its silhouette, dominated by the distinctive hump over its shoulders, makes it stand out at first glance as a titan that has no rival in the tundra. The bear is an omnipotent omnivore, whose survival strategy lies in the diversity of its diet. Despite being an enormous colossus, the ursid shows no problem adapting its diet to whatever creation puts in its path. Digging tirelessly in the soft spring soil, it devours carbohydrate-rich tubers and roots that have begun to sprout. The melting also exposes small rodents that live underground, such as marmots and ground squirrels, which are immediately eaten whole. Routine food in spring, which in winter would be a real luxury. With the melting of the rivers, the waters fill with the basis of their diet for this time of year, an immense amount of fresh salmon. The waterfall predator positions itself in the cascades and whirlpools, where the salmon inevitably must jump. The grizzly uses a simple but effective method, the patient ambush and the precise strike. The capture is a claw strike, or a quick bite that consumes the fatty meat, discarding what is not useful. But the spring feast doesn't end at the river, as the bear also benefits from scavenging. Its size and reputation allow it to steal remains of elk or caribou hunted by other predators, a meal at a relatively low cost and of considerable value. As the season progresses, competition for these resources intensifies, and they become increasingly scarce. The river becomes a battlefield where hierarchy is established with inescapable violence. The largest and strongest males take over the waterfalls, the strategic points for the greatest capture. Younger bears and females must settle for areas with lower water flow, always under the threat of being displaced by a more powerful conspecific. The territorial confrontation is brutal and direct, driven by the urgency to feed and reproductive zeal. Suddenly, two rival males face off, raising their monumental bodies above the water. The roars, filled with fury and warning, are an ancient echo that reverberates throughout the valley. The fight is a violent altercation, a demonstration of power, where claws sink into thick fur and fangs seek to inflict wounds. The objective of the fight is humiliation and retreat, as the grizzly does not accept rivals in its hunting grounds. Victory guarantees access to both the best fishing and the available females. With the breeding season just around the corner, the males who manage to impose their dominance guarantee their privileged place in the eyes of the receptive females. The victorious males pursue the females in heat, forming a bond that will last for several days of constant vigilance. While the stud males eager to mate harass the female bears, the females protecting their cubs born the previous winter live under constant tension. Male grizzlies have a well-known reputation for infanticide, a despicable behavior that seeks to kill offspring in order to force the mother into heat and mate again. The grizzly mother becomes a fierce defender, with a single mission to protect her offspring. The female attacks any male that approaches her foraging area with unprecedented ferocity, relying on her ability to distract. While she fights, the bear cubs climb to the safety of a tree, their only sanctuary against the tyranny of the male. Spring, although generous, is cruel to the little ones, as only half of the bear cubs will manage to survive their first year of life in unforgiving Alaska. Although grizzly bears are formidable predators, apexes of the vast Alaskan food chain, there is a threat to their survival, one that knows no mercy, and that ignores any threatening posture or warning roar. Habitat fragmentation is a latent danger to the life of the majestic grizzly bear. The expansion of human settlements, the construction of roads, and the exploitation of resources drastically reduce their vast hunting territory. This invasion forces them into fatal encounters with humans, where the ursid always comes out on the losing end. Hunting, both legal and illegal, slowly but steadily decimates their populations. Its whitish counterpart, the formidable polar bear, is not exempt from this reality either. Global warming is decimating the base of its ecosystem, sea ice. The premature retreat of the ice in spring forces these giants to swim strenuous distances or search for food on land, increasing the risk of starvation. For the master of the skies, the bald eagle, human influence is also a death sentence. Pollution of rivers and lakes directly affects the salmon population, which is the main source of food for their chicks. The use of pesticides and heavy metals in nesting areas weakens the shell of their eggs, fatally compromising their reproduction. From the giant grizzly in the valley to the puffin on the cliff, Alaska's wildlife faces a silent and relentless enemy. The resilience of these species is a testament to the strength of nature in a place where the greatest challenge comes not from the wild, but from the waste and overexploitation of natural resources. It is our responsibility to promote conservation policies that protect the purity of this invaluable ecosystem. With efforts focused on their preservation, we can ensure that bears continue to roar, wolves continue to howl, and eagles continue to fly in this vast and untamed land. Have you been amazed by the stories of wild species in wild Alaska? So don't leave without giving us your well-deserved like. Similarly, you can write in the comments box which wild species has been your favorite. To stay up to date with our upcoming releases, we invite you to subscribe and click on the notification bell. And finally, if you want to support our mission to raise awareness about the struggle for survival of the wild inhabitants of the planet's remote corners, you can share this video with your friends. That's all for now. See you next time with more stories of numerous herds, burly bears, voracious felines, and above all, tales of wild lives.